What's up, guys? So my last video, I did a review of my first day as a DoorDasher in 2025. I'm in my mid-30s, starting over in life, hitting the reset button, and starting from the ground up. And of course, as promised, I now want to review my results after I have some data now to analyze for my first few weeks as a DoorDasher. In my first video, I basically was barely making anything. I definitely learned a few lessons since then. I've improved, but I have to admit that the earnings are still not very high. I made a little spreadsheet here to keep track of everything. And I'm viewing it from my tablet, but I will later on when I edit this video, I'll try to put it like maybe up right here somewhere or somewhere on the video. Before I do this, I want to say that from what I can tell, I think a lot of you guys aren't actually making as much money as you think. One mistake that I've seen a lot of friends make personally is that they just look at the DoorDash app and it tells you how much time that you've worked and of course how much money you've made. And a lot of people just look at that to figure out their hourly rate. But what I've been learning is like, you don't want to start your app until you're actually in the zone that you're going to be dashing. So realistically, you need to start your time and track your own time on something like what I'm about to show you. You need to make your own time log and you need to be punching in and punching out when you actually start work for the day. So just like with any self-employment, you know, again, my background, I was self-employed for 10 years, ran my own business, and it basically just got to be too much. And it was taking me away from all the things that I want to be doing in life. You know, I was skipping out on all my dreams, everything that I thought my life would turn out like. And so that's why I'm hitting the reset button and going back to just, you know, having my freedom back. You know, people think being self-employed is going to give you freedom. The thing is, it can, but you have to earn that. You have to really learn how to master yourself, master your craft, master your business before you actually get to earn the right to have that freedom. Or I shouldn't say the right, but earn the ability to have that freedom. So with that said, you know, I'm taking a step back, starting fresh, starting new, hitting the life reset button. But at the same time, I'm not just throwing away all of my experience. I'm taking that and I'm actually applying it to this to help you guys see who are maybe just starting out how to know what you are actually making on DoorDash. Okay, so as we've all heard, time is money, right? We're only given so much time on this earth, and how you spend that time is going to determine on where you're going to end up in life, right? You could spend time doing one thing as opposed to another, and say if you're spending time in a higher paying job versus a lower paying job, you know, you are going to make more money for the time and effort you put into it. So you really have to start looking at things that way. You can't just look at it like the time spent in the app. Again, you have to look at when did you actually start work for the day, right, guys? Let's face it. If we weren't doing DoorDash, we wouldn't be sitting in our car driving around aimlessly, just, you know, I don't know, playing the freaking license plate game or slug bug. So while DoorDash may not be tracking all of my time, and you know, let's face it, they can't. How do they know what we aren't doing before and after our shifts, right? You as the self-employed individual are responsible for using your own intellectual mind to objectively look at how you're spending your time and determining, is this worth my efforts, right? So that's what we're going to dig into here. And I'm going to show you a quick, easy spreadsheet that I made to actually track this. So let me just go ahead. Like I said, I'm going to read it, but I'm going to put it up on screen later. I have it on my tablet, but it's stored in the cloud. So like I can view it from my computer, phone, tablet, whatever. Okay. So we're just going to go over this together. So of course you can see at the top, I have some headings. That's going to be the totals. We'll get into that in a second. As we go down, right, you see my headings for my columns. I have the date, location, time in, time out, my total time worked for that shift. I have my beginning odometer reading, my end odometer reading. I just put the last four, and my total miles driven, Then I put my total amount that I worked for each shift. So like, let's say that, you finish your DoorDash shift. The app will show you how much you're paid for each session that you've been DoorDashing. A lot of times I may be in and out of the app, depending if it takes me out of my area, or if you have to take a, quick gas break or something. You don't want to be getting offers while you're filling up your car. So you have to log out of the app. Again, that's why it's important to track your time, because the app does not track the time that you're not actually active in the app. So you have to do that yourself. So if I've had multiple dashes within my personal time on the clock, I just add up all those times and I enter it right here. So like I said in my last video, I made $60.55. That's my first day there. And then what I have here is my gross hourly. So this is before expenses. In my first video, I did include food. In this one, I'm not doing that. It just is too difficult to keep track of it. But do keep in mind, as long as you keep your receipts and you have verification to show that you are eating food on the clock, going out to eat. What I like to do is I just use my DoorDash Crimson card. Like, the only thing I use for that is for expenses DoorDashing. So that way it's super easy. At the end of the year, I can just take my bank statement, whatever it is, and just say, this is my write-off for food. And that's, by the way, that's the only thing I use it for. I use it for food and DoorDash expenses only. So it's super easy to categorize at the end of the year, put it on my taxes, and then, do it that way. So got my total payment, my gross hourly, and then over here I have my net hourly. And your net is going to be after you subtract your expenses, which in this case, I'm only subtracting my mileage. Now, so as you can see, my first week, I worked for 25 hours in total, just doing this on the side as I'm, doing the YouTube channel, different things. I drove 562 miles and I made $414 that week. So that was a gross hourly wage of $16.25 an hour. My net was only $10.74. So really not that good, just a little bit better than minimum wage. Now, okay, so that's my first week. You can see as I scroll down my different weeks here, there I made $8 an hour on average my second week, $9.95, basically 10 my third, $11 an hour my fourth. So really this is kind of drastically going down. I don't know if part of that was just the time of year. I don't know what was happening, but it did seem like the longer I went, I was actually making less and less money. So I do try to drive during peak hours and stuff. So yeah, I don't know what it is, if there's something I'm missing. But anyways, we'll get into that later and what the lessons I learned and the things of what I'm going to try to see if I can get this up. But, again, the most important thing about this video is I just want you guys to see how to actually track your expenses, track your earnings for yourself so that you actually know if this is worth your time. Not what the app says, but what is real, what is grounded and rooted in reality. Is this worth your time, or is there something you could be putting your time to that would pay you far more? Now, one thing that we can do now that we have this is we can actually analyze this data. We can look for trends. We can look for things such as, did I make more money if I worked at certain times a day? Did I make more money if I put in a longer shift? There's a lot of things that we can do because we have this data. That's why it's so important to track this. Guys, even if you're not going to analyze it now, it's so helpful just to have this data to analyze in the future. When you have more time, guys, it's just a good skill to have. So like, this is not only a good skill if you want to go into computer programming, can teach you a lot about, how computers think if you really get into like the visual basic part of Excel. But even just on a surface level, this is a great skill that can open up doors for future jobs, higher paying jobs, and really just for your own life. It's a no-brainer to learn how to build these spreadsheets and analyze the data, and whether it's Google Sheets, Excel. I'm using Microsoft Excel. But anyways, back to the matters at hand. So we went through this whole thing. You can see my weeklies. If we go jump to the top, this is what's going to give me my averages for the whole, whether it's month, year, however you want to do it. For me, I'm doing it by year because I don't do this a whole lot. If I was doing this full time, I'd probably make a sheet for like each week or maybe every month. But yeah, so back at the top, you can see I put in a total of 152 hours and 15 minutes. I drove a total of 2,807 miles. I estimate my mileage cost at $701.75. Now I want to talk about that real quick. So obviously gas, our biggest cost, but you also have to think that you need an oil change every 5,000 miles, especially if you're doing this where you're constantly commuting all the time. You're really turning your car into a workhorse. You definitely need to keep up on it. Oil change is the number one thing you have to do. So you want to think about your oil changes, your gas at a minimum, but sooner or later your car is going to go out, especially if you're putting high miles on it, doing a delivery service. So at some point, you're going to have to buy a new car. You really need to be thinking in terms of that. With that said, I'm being very conservative here. Typically, as I said in my last video, expenses for a car is about 70 cents a mile. Because I drive older junky cars, I'm only putting at 25 cents. So I'm being incredibly conservative here. And so we can see, even with that, only 25 cents a mile, that's still $700. That's still $700 out of my $2,800. So that's about 25% of my pay is going toward vehicle cost and maintenance. So moving over here, I have listed my gross pay, my net pay. That's going to be subtracting that $700. And then finally over here in these last two cells, I have my gross hourly wage. So that's just going to be simply taking my total gross pay, dividing it by the number of hours worked. And then I have my total net pay per hour. And that's going to be taking the total amount that I worked minus the $700 and then dividing that by the number of hours worked. So as you can see, guys, I only made $9.11 an hour, basically about minimum wage. I'm sure you can see how if I'm not tracking my mileage and if I'm just going off the time spent in an app, I'm sure that these numbers would be quite a bit higher. I definitely think that the more time you spend on your shift, the more you're going to make, because you're not going to have that commute time that's going to be eating away into your dashes. Like if you only spend an hour dashing and you have a 10 to 20 minute drive to and from, your dash spot that you really like, that could easily be 10, 20, 30% extra time. So, these numbers could go up quite a bit, from 13 an hour up to, 14, 15, 16 an hour. But again, this is the right way to track it. Okay, so now moving on to what I've learned and what's working for me, what's not working. So far, really this just isn't working, period. The whole thing. I mean, I can't live off of $9 an hour. I do have some repairs I need to make on this thing. I actually had to put some on my credit card to replace some parts and stuff. And now I got to pay that and interest. So yeah, $9 an hour really isn't sustainable. I need to be making about at least $1,500 to $2,000 a week. And the reality is there's just no way to do this unless I can figure out a way to optimize it. So right now I am running up a bit of debt. I'm hoping the YouTube channel takes off. That obviously would greatly help me if, I'm making money off making DoorDash videos on YouTube. And then also doing the DoorDash as some side income. Yeah, so it's really just, as of right now, not working out at all because I have aspirations in life and I don't want to just drive beater cars forever. I really should be looking at that 70 cents a mile. And so this spreadsheet here, actually, if I were to put that in at 70 cents, I can just click this cell here. We're going to change that to 70, so 0.7, hit enter. And as you can see, at 70 cents a mile, my vehicle maintenance cost goes up to $1,965, and that brings my net hourly down to 82 cents an hour. So definitely not something that's sustainable. However, I will say that what I do like about DoorDash is that it's completely flexible. You can work as much or as little as you want, when and where you want. You're not going to pay much taxes on it because of all your write-offs. And of course, if you're including your food, you're going to like you're going to be losing money, right? So really, my verdict of DoorDash is that it's really a great way if you need some liquid cash right away. It's a great way to go out, and make 40, 50, 60 bucks. But just keep in mind that you will be paying the price later on. Some things I'm going to be trying differently. I'm going to give this thing like another chance just to see if it can work. And so my plan now, I've been reading online, and a lot of people are saying is like, you cannot worry about your acceptance rate. I've been trying to look at it from DoorDash's perspective. You would think that they would want people to just always accept every order as soon as it comes. And you'd think they would incentivize you, which they do kind of say that they do. And I can see from their perspective why they would want to. But at the same time, a lot of people are saying that they make more by denying a lot of the lower paying orders. Whatever the case, guys, I'm going to give it a try. And if I can't get my pay up to at least maybe, 15 plus an hour, I'm probably just going to hang this thing up. And my final conclusion will be to just, not do DoorDash unless you just want a quick buck and you need that liquid cash now to maybe cover your cell phone bill or your, electric bill or something. So yeah, guys, without further ado, let me know if you guys want to see like maybe some of the programming or stuff, how I made that spreadsheet. If you guys want to see how to make one on Google Sheets, guys, let me know. I mean, at the end of the day, I work for you guys, the viewers. So let me know, what you liked, what you didn't like, what I could do better. I'm going to jump off and I'm going to go test this theory, see what happens if I dash and don't really worry about my acceptance rate and just go for the higher paying orders. All right, guys, till next video, peace out, and I'll see you soon.